Shingles. Getting shingles.
All right, good morning. If I can get everybody to have a seat, we'll go ahead and start here.
Mine wasn't bad. My wife's is so much worse than mine was.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Metroplan Tismo meeting. I will call the meeting to order. My name is Ramon Centerins, and I will be chairing the meeting today. Just as a reminder, since this meeting and our future meetings will be in person, it is important that all Tismo members attend our meetings in person in order for us to have a quorum. Members of the public will still be able to participate virtually, and we encourage them to do so. We have 2 public comment points in the meeting. Members of the public who want to speak and need to fill out a comment card and give that to Lisa. Those attending virtually who want to speak will use the raise hands feature on the Zoom screen. If you're attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you're called upon, your microphone will be temporarily unmuted by staff and will ask you to state your name and contact information for the record. We also accepted comments by email and phone message before the meeting. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Eric Hill of Metroplan Orlando staff for agenda review.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members. Good to see you all. It's a chatty bunch. It's obviously you're happy to see each other. Mr. Chairman, we do have a new member, Mr. Leonard Bardine, who is a new member from the city of Castleberry. I don't know if he's, oh, okay, I didn't get a chance to meet you, and so welcome. Okay. We also have some other good news. Ms. Taylor Laurent has been promoted to Manager of Transportation Planning here at Metroplan Orlando. I'm sure many of you know Taylor. And then we also have 2 new staff members. They're sitting in the back nervous because they probably didn't know that I was going to introduce them to this group. But Jason Sotaro is with us. He joins us from the private sector. He's going to be a member in the planning group. And then we have Slade Downs, who's joining us from the Sarasota Manatee NPO. He heard about Metroplan Orlando and the way we function and said he wanted to be part of a real NPO. So that's why he joined us. I'm just joking. At our October meetings, at the TAC meeting, we're going to have a workshop on active transportation planning. So the TAC meeting is going to be a little different, and for those that are on TAC, you'll hear more of this at the TAC meeting, but I just wanted to make that announcement. And then at our October meeting, we'll start that process of looking at new officers. We normally have a selection committee, and so we'll be looking for volunteers at that meeting. And then lastly, on a sad note, many of you are aware that Jim Harrison, who was the executive director of Lynx, passed away, and just wanted to make that announcement. So, Mr. Chairman, that ends my announcements, and I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you for that, and congratulations to new staff members and new appointments to the committee. All right, so now we move on to roll call.
Yes, good morning. I'll ask all committee members to keep your microphones off until called. Please say here or present. Atkins. Barden.
Here.
Bates.
Here.
Blackadar.
Here.
Broad.
Here.
Carson. Here. Edie.
Present.
El Hassar.
Present.
Elliott Moore. Felblinger.
Here.
Friel. Giovinazzo. Gordon. Hershelman.
Here.
Homiani. Hudson.
Here.
Jameson.
Here.
Dredge.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Krug. Lim.
Here.
Margraf.
Here.
McDaniel. Mohyson.
Present.
Pulliam.
Here.
Richmond. Sanders,
Here.
Sonorans,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Wetzel, Radzai. Mr. Chair, that concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Lisa. And we don't have anyone attending virtually, correct? Okay. All right, we'll now move on to public comments and action items. We hear public comments, and we ask that you provide your name and address for the record, and please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. If any members of the public wish to comment and are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function, and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad, and we'll send you a prompt to unmute your mic. Do we have anyone joining us virtually who would like to make a comment?
There are no hands virtual side.
Thank you. Anyone in the public wishing to make a public comment?
I have not received any requests.
All right. Very well, so we'll move on to action items. And we have 4 items today. So our first one is the approval of the June 24th Tismo meeting minutes. You'll find information in tab 1. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
First,
Second, Steve Kane.
All right, first and a second. Any discussion? This is a voice vote. Please make sure you unmute your mic. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. The next 3 items will be presented by Mr. Keith Caskey, and looking for some amendments and recommendations. So what we'll do is we'll just have Keith just go through all of them and then individually ask questions and vote on those items. And hopefully you don't keep Mr. Keith Caskey standing for too long. So please proceed, sir, with the emergency Fdot amendment to fiscal year 22-23, 26-27 TIP.
Okay, good morning. This first TIP amendment request came up after the June, July committee and board meetings, and this had to be amended into the TIP by an August 10th deadline, just to keep the project on schedule. And so FDOT requested that this amendment be processed on an emergency basis. So our board chairwoman signed the resolution approving the request on August 10th, just based on MetroPlan's policy for processing emergency TIP amendments. And this request includes adding funds for the resurfacing and safety project on State Road 436 from North Lake Boulevard to Boston Avenue due to cost increases for the project. And you all have the information on this in tab 2 in your agenda packets. And the board will be requested to ratify this amendment at their September 14th meeting. So unless there's any questions, we're asking for your recommendation to ratify the amendment.
Any questions?
I just want to thank MetroPlan staff, FDOT staff. It's been to get this expedited, it's a great project, a great example of the DOT working with the city to get complete street pedestrian and bicycle improvements in during a resurfacing project. So just want to thank everyone that got this to here today.
Thank you for your comments. Any further discussion, questions? All right, we're looking for a motion to ratify the amendment.
So moved. Moheisen.
I have a first,
Smith. Second.
second. Any further discussion? All right, it's a voice vote. Please unmute microphones. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay, next, these projects so that it'll be consistent with the work program, and this does not affect the cost or schedule for these projects. And as many of you know, this is a routine procedure that we go through about this time every year, and the information on this is in tab 3 in your package. So again, unless anyone has any questions, we're asking for your approval of the amendment.
Any questions, discussion? All right,
Shad Smith, I move to approve.
I got a motion, second.
Second, Blackadoor.
All right, motion and second. Any discussion? All right, looking for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
DOT staff is going to give a brief presentation to provide some more details on these projects. And we have Catalina Chacon and Hatem Agib from FDOT here today. And I'm going to turn it over to Catalina to start off the presentation.
Thank you, Keith. Good morning, everyone. Again, Catalina Chacon with FDOT, and here with me we have Hatem Agib, the FDOT project manager for the I-4 Beyond the Ultimate project. So we're here today, as Keith mentioned, you're going to be seeing a tip amendment for some of the projects related to the I-4 Beyond the Ultimate that received stimulus funding to move forward to construction. Before we start, I wanted to let you know that we recognize that you might have a lot of questions today. You might be wondering, how do these projects that we're going to be presenting today fit in the overall big picture of I-4 BTU? What is the department doing to move forward? The entire program is very needed. We are aware of that. And we wanted to let you know that, as you can imagine, this is a very massive project, is evolving and changing rapidly. There are many stakeholders and many people that we have to coordinate with. Bring it closer to me. And we're doing our best. We also recognize that we have been here before. This is not the first time that we presented and given you an update on the I-4 BTU. And we have changed scopes, we have updated cost estimates, we have changed schedules, and we are trying to articulate these changes as fast as we can and be transparent with you guys. So we want to let you know that we are trying our best to be transparent and to answer all of the questions that you might have, that we have the answers to. And we recognize this is a top priority project for you as well as for us. It's very needed for this region. And we want to let you know we're doing our best. We're ironing out last details as we want to ensure that this project is going to serve Central Florida well into the future. So, excuse me, with that in mind, we want to let you know that today we're here to present an update on those projects that actually have funding for construction. And we were able to receive this funding through stimulus. It's ARPA funding, America Recovery Plan, I think that's what it is. So obviously we're looking at ways on how can we move forward to construction is very needed, and we were able to receive this funding. So we're definitely going to take advantage of that and proposing to move it forward to construction. We are certain that by the end of this year, as we work out and tweak and the details of the bigger picture of I-4, we want to come back here at the end of this year or early next year with the whole story. We want to tell you what is it that we've been doing, how these little pieces fit in the overall picture, and what are the possible steps to move forward BTU to construction might look like. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Hatem, and we're going to proceed with the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Catalina. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come present today on I-4 Beyond the Ultimate projects. With that, we'll just jump into the slides. Before we go into the projects that are actually in the TIP amendment, I think there are 4 project numbers you'll see in the TIP amendment. Before that, just want to give an overview of I-4 Beyond the Ultimate and what we have as far as the near-term improvements. So as you can see on the screen to the left, the exhibit to the left, in the middle in gray color is the I-4 Ultimate, recently constructed with the express lanes and open to traffic. North of I-4 Ultimate, we call that I-4 Beyond the Ultimate North. South of I-4 Ultimate, we call that I-4 Beyond the Ultimate South. The north comprises of 2 Beyond the Ultimate segments, segment 3, Seminole County, segment 4 in Volusia County. To the south, you have 4 Beyond the Ultimate segments, segments 2, 1A, 1B, and 5, Orange and Osceola counties. The main challenge with those BTU segments remain the funding. Each segment, costs about hundreds of millions of dollars each, and within BTU South, some of the segments cost over $1 billion each. So funding remains a challenge for those big segments. So while we pursue opportunities for these fundings, we continue to look at, I-4, the changing traffic patterns, operational changes that everyone sees on a daily basis. We see how much budget do we have, try to come up with those near-term improvements to just, keep meeting that demand and that operational need that we see on I-4 on a daily basis. Again, I-4 is a critical strategic corridor, very critical to the central Florida region. So with that in mind, I'll go ahead and next slide zoom into the beyond the ultimate south. So what you see on the screen is all what we have funding as of now. Not all of these are in the TIP amendment, but we thought just to go ahead and show you what we have in our funded project. So we'll start with the first one on the top right. You have 44315-1. That's the I-4 at Sand Lake Road Interchange. We're improving Sand Lake Interchange at that location. We are in active procurement as we speak. We expect to open bids sometime October, November of this year, end of October of this year. Next to that, the 448-915-1, that's State Road 528 ramp widening. If you're traveling from the downtown direction in I-4 and you're taking that 528 ramp to I-Drive or the airport direction, in the existing condition, it's a single ramp. What we're seeing, and from the traffic analysis, we see that the traffic is backing up and backspilling into the I-4 main line. So the solution to that is go ahead and widen that ramp to 2 lanes. So that's what we're doing. The project is in design. We expect that to go to construction summer of next year. Next, the 44111-3-3, that's the I-4 at Darrell Carter Parkway interchange. It's a new interchange that actually got awarded a couple weeks ago, so we expect construction to start soon. And then the last one on the bottom, the 448-914-1, that's the I-4 at 535 interchange improvement. We are improving the interchange at that location, as you will see in the next slide. So that's kind of what we have lined up as far as near-term improvements. To the west of I-4, as you can see on the screen, we are building a westbound express lane, a single westbound express lane, starting from Sand Lake Road all the way down to just west of State Road 536. That single lane westbound express lane is being built part of multiple projects. So I'm gonna click next, and then you can see the small dotted boxes. Those are that single lane express lane in the westbound direction. It's just being built part of multiple projects, just because of the location and just the construction limits make sense to build it with those projects. So that's kind of what we have going on. For the purpose of the TIP amendment, we only have 4 project numbers. So the top 2, Sand Lake Road interchange and the piece of the single lane express lane, those goes with projects, which means that it's a single construction contract. It's a design build project. Again, we're in active procurement. We expect to open bids October of this year. The 2 bottom ones is the 535 interchange improvements, along with that piece of the express lane that will be built with it. Again, it's a goes with project, which means a single construction contract design build option as well. We are looking to advertise for the design build procurement actually next week on that project. We're looking to open bid May of next year, as Catalina will cover in her slides. So with that, we'll go into the next slides. One thing I want to mention about the Sand Lake Road interchange and the associated express lane, the scope hasn't changed from what you have seen last year. It just rolled forwarded from fiscal year 22 to 23. So the scope has not changed. It's the same what you have seen before. The bottom one, the 535 interchange, like Katerina mentioned, we were able to take advantage of the ARPA funding that we received, come up with a project that's ready. ARPA funding comes with constraints. For example, you had to have a project ready in fiscal year 23. Also, you have to spend all the money. So you have to design, construct, invoice everything by end of 2026. So very constrained schedule, but we were able to go ahead and get this project ready, which it still provides the operational needs, and we think that is the right project for that location, as Catalina will cover on. So with that, I'll turn it over to Catalina to go over that.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the 448914-1, that's the I-4 at 535 interchange improvements, as well as the 449771-1, that is the one portion of that single westbound express lane that we've also called the tube, if you've heard that before. So here's an aerial view of the existing configuration of the I-4 at 535 interchange. Some of the key intersections near the interchange include Hotel Plaza Boulevard, Palm Parkway to the north, and then Violin Avenue to the south. We also, as we are preparing, like Adam said, we're in active, receive stimulus funding, so we're working on the schedule, on the concept as a design build project, so we're preparing our roadway plans and our RFP. We're also validating the traffic data to ensure that this project is gonna serve well into the future. We wanna make sure that we're getting the most out of it, the most benefit out of it. So what we are observing is that there are two main ramp movements that they need a lot more capacity than what we have right now. So currently, if you're traveling westbound on I-4, coming from downtown Orlando, and you want to get off at 535, that ramp is under capacity, and we're projecting that vehicles are going to spill back onto main line of I-4, which poses a safety concern. So that was one of the key considerations for the design that we're proposing at this interchange. Also, if you are traveling northbound on 535 and you want to go westbound on I-4, you got to get on those left turn lanes that are underneath the bridge of I-4, right there. And so we had originally thought of a proposed concept which included displaced left turns. So right now you will have to come to the signal up here and make the left turn. And we were proposing to do a displaced left turn, which we will get that traffic turning left. We will move it out of the intersection before, and then you will be able to get into the ramp of I-4. However, while we are validating that data, we realized that that displaced left turn still was not going to be enough for the demand of that movement. So at this moment, we're working on those critical movements and see what is the best concept that's going to serve the demands in this interchange. So we came up with an enhancement, if you will, of the original PD&E concept that is going to give us the most return of investment for this interchange, as well as service life for the interchange. So that concept looks like this. So the proposed concept will include how are we going to address those two main critical movements that I just went over. So we're proposing I'm going to start with so if you're coming from downtown Orlando, are going to get off at 535 in the westbound direction. We're proposing to realign that ramp. So we're going to realign it and also widen it. So we're going to provide that extra capacity that is needed. Now, the other key movement was the northbound I-4 to westbound 535, and you see that loop ramp here. That's going to go over that crossroads property. So I'll point on this screen as well. So what we did is that loop ramp is going to definitely give us that extra capacity that we need and is going to alleviate the operational concerns that we have at this interchange. We are also proposing to include widening on 535 northbound. We're going to provide additional storage for the left and right turn lanes at Palm Parkway. So right now, we're basically going to widen 535 all the way to almost the ramp terminals there in the northbound direction. You can see the bottom portion of the interchange. We're proposing an Echelon intersection at Violin Avenue and I-4. And this is in line with the PD&E concept that we had. And we will have to reconfigure the southbound 535 to eastbound I-4 loop ramp in order to make room for that Echelon intersection. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we received stimulus funding, and that is how we're being able to advance this project to construction. And in order to stay within the funding available, we are proposing to split the construction of this, or phase the construction into phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 will consist of the improvements on the top of the screen, if you will. So we're gonna address those two main concerns that we're observing: the westbound off-ramp and the northbound on-ramp to I-4 westbound, as well as the additional storage on 535 for the left and right turns. We are also proposing to include, it's kind of hard to see, but there is a green line here on the north side of 535, and that is a FGT, Florida Gas Transmission Line, a big utility line that we have in there that will be in conflict with the bridge. We were going to have to do bridge widening to include that westbound express lane extension. So we have to move and relocate that line. We've been working with FGT, and this is also part of the scope, the proposed scope for this project. So what are the benefits of phasing this project into phase 1 and phase 2? Well, we are continuing our westbound improvements. As you all aware, we are building that westbound express lane from Sand Lake to 536. So we're going to be addressing the westbound traffic demand and the traffic concerns that we're seeing. As I mentioned, we're going to take care of those two ramp movements that are going to pose safety concerns on I-4. The work along 535, the loop ramp, the ramp terminals, they are not going to be throwaway. They're going to be the final configuration when the BTU and the rest of the projects comes through. By removing the left turn lane, the northbound left turn to I-4 westbound left turn lane is going to make it easier when we come back in the future and we build the second phase of the interchange. Also, that's a big question in everyone's mind, I'm pretty sure, this bright line rail, you know, what is going to happen in here. So by building half the interchange, we're also allowing everybody interested, all parties interested in more time to finalize and see where the rail is going to go in this area. We, like I mentioned, we're also advancing the major utility relocation, and we are finally able to build this project within the available budget that we have. This is the second project in the TIP-STIP 449771-1, and it is just the last piece of that single westbound express lane or tube that is being built. Like Hada mentioned, we gotta build it in 3 separate projects because we are going to be letting the projects differently. So different contractors are gonna be building this project. So we didn't want them to work on top of each other. So this is how we came up with the separation of this the westbound express lane. So this is just the typical, what it's gonna look like. And this is the circle, the oval represents the project limits. Here are some of the key dates for those 2 projects that our goes with. As I mentioned, is a design build procurement. And right now we are in the active advertisement phase. Like Hada mentioned, we're proposing to advertise next week. A key date here on the screen is the federal authorization or final RFP. And that is tied to a TIP-STIP amendment. We need that in order to finalize the RFP and get the federal authorization so that we could proceed with letting and construction. Our letting date is in May of next year. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn it back to Adam.
Okay, thank you, Catalina. So Catalina covered 2 project numbers that you'll see in the TIP amendment. I'll go ahead and go over the other 2. Starting with the other piece of that single lane express lane in the westbound direction. Again, just being built part of multiple projects. The project rolled forward from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. That's why you're seeing it again today. Just one thing, if you notice the project limits here for that dotted circle for that express lane kind of overlaps with the others. And the reason for that is based on the current schedules, we see that the Sand Lake Road Interchange project will finish the last, after Darrell Carter Parkway and 535 Interchange. So what we have is the last contractor out there will go ahead and put the final friction course, striping, and tubular markers part of that project. So just based on the latest schedules we have, Sand Lake Road will go ahead and do that. That's why you see the overlap here with other projects. So that's one project. The next one is the Sand Lake Road at I-4 interchange improvement. Again, it's the same scope as what you've seen last year. Just roll forward from last year to this year. One thing I want to point out that, although these are I-4 projects, we are adding significant value to the cross roads or the local roads. So for example, here, Sand Lake Road and Turkey Lake Road, if you're familiar with that area, it's very congested. And if you get off of I-4 westbound, so if you're traveling from the downtown direction today, you take the I-4 exit to Sand Lake Road, you will see the weaving problems, the congestion there is very, there's a problem there. So these projects add value to those roads. We're eliminating that left turn, as you can see, and instead you're just going to keep driving. If you follow that yellow line, you just keep driving there, go over Sand Lake Road, and then you access Turkey Lake Road from that point. There will be a signal there. So we are adding a lot of value to those roads. The same thing with 535. It's an I-4 project, but like Catalina mentioned, you're increasing the storage length on at Palm Parkway. We're doing that free loop ramp to help with that congestion on 535. So this is something I want to point out. Is just some feedback we got that these are I-4 projects. We're spending money on highway, but if you look closely, we're actually improving the local infrastructure as well. That's all we had for today. Any questions for us?
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions or discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. Nabil.
It seems evident that there is an absence of flyovers at this conflicting intersection, I-35 and I-4. Why is that?
What do you mean absence of flyover?
There are other intersections that were simpler than this as far as the number of movements, and you see flyover. I think Sand Lake Road has a flyover, I believe. I think it might resolve that a lot easier than all this, right-of-way area acquisition and so forth and so on.
So that loop ramp that you see there, it will have to cross over so this loop ramp will have to cross over the westbound off-ramp. This area, as I mentioned, is the Crossroads parcel that FDOT acquired. So this area is needed for a water retention area, but we're also able to utilize it for this loop ramp and address that demand that is needed in this area. So while it's not a flyover, which will save us cost, it will be at grade, but then we will start to elevate at some point to be able to cross over this ramp here that's coming from I-4.
So there's not a need to acquire additional land?
So the original PD&E, right, the original concept, we're staying within those limits. We're not proposing to acquire additional right-of-way or go beyond those right-of-way needs that we established a while ago. This is all within that right-of-way that was already envisioned for the BTU.
So it's basically a cost issue, basically?
Construction is how do we deliver? That is one of the biggest challenges that we have. The construction cost, like Hada mentioned, some of these projects in this area are over $1 billion, and unfortunately, we don't have unlimited funding, and we're doing, like we said, we're doing our best to address what we see, the needs that we have. We know we have to build the whole thing at one point, and hopefully, we're very certain by the end of this year, early next year, we can come back to you and show you the bigger picture and what we are thinking is gonna get us there to build the entire project.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other Questions? Chad?
I'll follow up on that. So did you have to buy the whole entire Crossroads parcel to begin with? Is that kind?
Yes.
So you already had that
It was
as a
already
taking, so that's
slated,
why the ramp
yes.
ended up there?
Yeah.
Okay. That
And
makes
it is
sense.
very similar to the original PD&E concept. The original PD&E concept also had a loop ramp and also a flyover, but again, we're trying to find ways to save the cost. How can we, we have more tools. The PD&E was finalized back in 2017. There's different criteria, different tools that we have available to us, and we're trying to do, that's what we've been trying to do. How can we minimize the cost while improving operations here?
The call it northbound, well, I don't know if it's northbound, it's this direction, I don't know if north is up.
It is.
But that is north, so
Yeah,
northbound
that way
535.
is north.
That backs up in the right lane really bad now. And that's with in mind that everybody who wants to go westbound on I-4 is on the left. So what has this done to help that? It seems like now everybody is going to be in the right lanes. So it just seems like that would be a concern from a traffic standpoint of just so much congestion on the right side. Because right now, it's kind of weird getting into Violin. People want to get into Violin, but you're wanting to get over to get on the off-ramp to go eastbound. But now everybody's going to have to be on the right side of the road.
So I brought this image here because it's a zoom in version, even though it has the overlay of what we consider one of the options for here. But one of the features that we're proposing here is so there is a signal here, right? And right now, if you want to get on I-4, going northbound 535 to westbound I-4, you have to stop there at that signal.
Yeah, right.
And that is one, that is causing, right, you have to split that signal into more phases, right? But we're gonna get rid of that, and that's gonna help this traffic coming from westbound I-4 flow faster and better. And also, with that giant loop ramp, we get a lot of storage there. So we've run the traffic models. We have validating the most recent traffic data that we have with those changes that we've been observing, and we're pretty confident that that's a pretty big loop ramp that is gonna get us that storage that we need.
So in the final configuration there at Violin, because the Violin to eastbound I-4 is where there's a lot of conflict of people who want to get on I-4, but they're stuck in all the Violin mess. What do you do in there to resolve some of that?
So you're talking about this
Yeah.
area here?
Yeah,
So that, we're lengthening that ramp here. We're also adding another aux lane on mainline I-4 going eastbound. That is going to help with the weave and being able for those vehicles to merge faster, safer, and, push that traffic off 535.
the other question I have is on the tube part, where are the entrances and exits on that?
You only, let me get to that image. You only enter where,
Is that what the red arrow is?
so the
or-
red arrow is where I-4 Ultimate Express lanes end today.
Okay, yeah.
So the tube is when we were doing our traffic analysis, we were realizing that there was a demand for vehicles that they wanted to continue going west. They didn't want to get stuck in those interchanges here on all of these interchanges. So why we call it a tube is precisely because of that. This is your last exit point here, and then you're just going to continue. It's going to serve that
Okay.
travel
It's only
demand.
that, it's really the through movement almost through
That's
the
it.
entire attractions area to get past it. Okay.
Correct.
I wasn't sure if that's what that meant, but,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
Just had a question. Could you go back
ahead.
to the 535? So is there any remaining retail or restaurant uses in the Crossroads Shopping Center? You're taking all of that out. So there'll be no, so let's call it westbound traffic going to Hotel Plaza Boulevard?
Right. That entrance will no longer exist. There will be a T intersection.
Yeah, that actually may help that intersection because
Yes.
I think it's,
Yes.
it's split phase
Yes.
right now. It's kind of inefficiently operating. So you may, maybe to point previously, it may gain some capacity just
You're
through
correct.
signal improvements.
Great point, thank you. Yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Movements serving that intersection in and out, so we can serve the other movements better. I don't know if we can do that at this point. Or you're
We
anticipating in
could
construction
talk
traffic.
about that actually, because you're right, it's not, we don't have a leg there anymore. There's no need for that through movement to go towards Crossroads, so
Right.
we will, let us get with our traffic ops department and we'll get back with you.
Okay.
So we can talk about when we can start optimizing that signal timing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for the discussion? All right, thank you for that presentation, addressing those safety concerns and congestion. And I want to apologize if you saw that I noticed that I smirked. I saw the heads going around when they were watching the pointers going around, so they're trying to figure which TV or which screen, you know. But no, that's okay. I just had this image of those videos where the cats are following the laser pointer, you know, so that was why I smirked. But, okay, well,
It's the action.
this is an action item, so looking for a motion to approve the amendment. Do I have a motion? Got a motion? Do I have a second?
Smith, second?
All right, motion and excuse me, motion and a second. Any further discussion? This is a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. And Mr. Keith, one more left, right? Oh, that's it, all right. Okay, so now moving on to presentations, status reports. We actually have two presentations today, and we'll hold questions until the presentation ends. The first presentation is on the Fdot District 1 Speed Reduction through Signal Timing Program, presented by Mr. Stephen Davis, Tismo Program Engineer for Fdot District 1. Stephen here?
Good
morning.
Oh, virtually. Okay. Good morning.
Can you hear me well?
We sure can.
All right, excellent. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm the District 1 TSMO Program Engineer in the Bartow headquarters office. And I wanted to share with you today a quick presentation on an effort we have underway in District 1, currently in Polk and Manatee County. The first slide here is kind of a sombering one. And if you haven't figured it out, these peaks on this graph over time are fatalities. This particular graph represents a segment on US 41 in South Bradenton in Manatee County. It's a high fatality, serious injury, ped bike safety concern for District 1. And it just brings to light, the fact that we lose people every day in the state of Florida to motor vehicle accidents and in particular in this corridor, ped and bike accidents. And that's our challenge with this project, is to find a way to move the needle. So next slide, please. That corridor I was just mentioning, here's kind of an overview of that segment. If you're familiar with the area, it starts up near Orlando in the north side and goes all the way down almost to the airport on the south end of Televast Road. As I mentioned, this segment has had 31 fatalities in just a 5-year period. 264 serious injuries. The speed limit through this area, south of that blue line there, is posted at 50 miles an hour, and for the majority north of that, it's at 45. In recent years, spot speed studies departments found that the actual 85th percentile operating speeds in those segments are 55 and 60 miles an hour correspondingly. Next slide, please. We also looked at a second corridor as another test case. This is Memorial Boulevard, US 92 through downtown Lakeland. If you're familiar, it's kind of a similar typical section, 6 lanes wide, divided with narrow sidewalks on each side. This is the #1 ped and bike fatality serious injury corridor in Polk County for this date as well. Next slide. Really, what we want to show here is for an effort like this, it's got to be put in the right context and in the right location. Our 2 principal investigators here, you see them, Neil Turner, who's a PE trainee in our district headquarters, and Sam Campbell, who's a signal timing engineer in our satellite TMC in Bradenton, led the effort. But you also see the other folks there on the side, including myself, that had a hand in this effort. It really takes a team to put this together. And so we're thankful for everyone that was involved, including our safety office in the analysis. Next slide. So how we got here. Really, we wanted to take a step back and look at things from a planning narrative and take a big picture approach. We know that the safe system approach starts in the planning stage. If any of you have seen that wheel there on the right and been presented to by Mark Doctor with Federal Highway, the department, along with Vision Zero and Vital Few, has adopted the safe systems approach. And so we want to take a holistic look at how we can improve safety. Another thing was that we got challenged by our district secretary. About 1.5 years ago, he gathered all the applicable groups together, and he challenged us. He's like, look, guys, we got to move the needle. We got to find a way from every phase of transportation to try and make an impact to reduce these fatalities and serious injuries. And we took that seriously, partnering with design and safety, traffic operations to come up with things that we could do not just in the medium or long term, but also in the short term. And traffic ops, we found through this speed management through signal timing effort, was able to do something immediately. And so what we did was we took a systematic approach. We tried to go through this and look at what we could do, in our realm to make a difference. And next slide, please. And a part of that was to look at how we could increase survivability. As I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, and kind of alluding back to the systematic approach, is that speed kills, literally, especially when it comes to pedestrian and bicycles. I think all the transportation professionals in the room are probably very familiar with the graph on the right and their survivability of a pedestrian at certain speeds. It's all about energy, right? And reducing that energy, the best way we can do it is to reduce speed and to increase that survivability. It also comes with a changing culture. This change wasn't without friction from some of even the folks in our own office. Local agencies had questions about timing impacts on their local roads. And so it's about thinking about, how we're focusing on balancing the needs of the roadway user. You might be familiar, the FDOT design manual. If few years back was holistically revamped. And there's an entire section in the FDM now that just focuses on speed management. And so we wanted to take that to heart and focus on what we can do from a TSMO perspective to add to that culture building narrative of reducing serious injuries and fatalities. We wanted to build a toolbox. We wanted to get lessons learned from this to understand where this works, where it doesn't. And we wanted to develop some performance measures to kind of guide, of course, our progress and let us know if it's effective or not. So next slide, please. So some of those performance measures, of course, your traditional metrics, crash data, of course, that's what we lead with from a safety perspective. The survivability, we talked about spot speed studies, historical and before and after spot speed studies. After spot speed studies will be conducted. We also took advantage of some crowdsourced data through RIDIS and HERE data. We also have a couple NVDS devices out there, and we were able to use a new tool through the department in NRICS to measure corridor delay and travel times. Next slide, please. So how do we do this? Essentially, it's pretty simple. Some of you may have tried these methods in the past. And it's really all we did was we adjusted the offsets on our timings. We reduced the green bands by reducing cycle lengths, and we reduced our progression speed. So we reduced our speeds. Our initial goal was to reduce the operating speeds by 5 to 10 miles an hour. And so we did that by essentially constricting vehicle movement through the offsets and the progression speed. So we reduced cycle lengths, fully well knowing that we're going to have added congestion, especially during peak times and during peak season. We wanted to balance the use of the corridor with the roadway users in the context to lower ped delay, and hopefully encourage more of those peds to cross at the signals and less at mid-block. And along with that, we implemented LPI as well. Next slide. So what did we see? In our initial changes, we were running upwards of 180-second cycle lengths in some of these segments. We constricted those down as much as to 120, 130 seconds. So it was quite a squeeze. But doing so, we were able to see a 4 to 8 mile an hour speed reduction, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it amounts up to about a 15% change, which we were pretty pleased with. You can see the tables there on the right. Numbers might be a little tiny for you, but you can see where we saw a lot of the biggest gains were in the evening plans, which is good because that tends to be the time when there's more ped accidents, crashes because of reduced visibility. Our travel time went up 20 to 90 seconds, up to a 20% increase. You can see one of the segments there, the southbound weekend travel time comparisons went up. And then, we monitored performance, and we continue to do that and monitor crashes. You can see the number of stops we added. In some cases, there was an additional 2 stops in the evening plans through the same corridor. And so you're balancing convenience and speed for safety, essentially. And we measure that through the crashes. So next slide, please. This is more data from US 92. So this was an interesting case. We kind of got a little bit of an opposite effect in this location. If anyone's familiar, this kind of shows to demonstrate how spacing of signals is important and the geometry of the roadway. This particular corridor has some vertical curves in it and some quite steep curves. And so it seemed that when we coupled geometry with additional stops and delay, that encouraged people to speed possibly. So this is just kind of an example of where this type of application needs to be closely monitored and just make sure that it's achieving the desired goal. So next slide. So lessons learned. Essentially, what we pulled from this over the past year or so is it requires a heavy-handed approach. It takes staff time, analysis, you know, as many things do, but it also requires active arterial management. So both of the corridors we selected are connected back to the STMC. They are actively managed with ATC controllers. They have good detection. They have CCTV cameras so that traffic can be observed and timing adjusted as necessary. They're all in coordinated systems. So AAM is pretty much a necessity. It's not necessarily suited for a blanket approach. Like we saw with the 92 example, we're kind of seeing that this is, you know, more applicable in certain conditions. Typically, what we're thinking now is it's more suited for arterials where the signal spacing is greater than a quarter mile but less than a half mile, so you can have greater control over the speed and the platooning of the vehicles and progression, but not causing too many stops and undue delay. And establishing effective performance measures. So really it comes down to speed and the changing crashes. So next slide. Next steps. So things we want to do going from here. We're considering trying some unique things during late night operations. Currently, both of these corridors go into free operation late at night. So we're considering going to recall on the side streets or even possibly a four-way red. That's a maybe. We're still considering that. Half cycle metering possibly on 92 to try that out to continue to reduce speeds. We'd like to get into a benefit cost analysis. So number of crashes reduced versus the amount of congestion induced would be a great BC picture to look at. We're expanding into other corridors. We're going to try this in other contexts. We've got 4 new corridors identified in several other counties that we're getting ready to do initial analysis on to try this. Not just in urban areas, in rural towns and suburban. We want to try to spread things out and see if those types of contexts have any effect on this type of initiative. Other performance measures, of course, you know, we want to try to use areas where we have the most data available as possible. So ATSPMs to monitor red light running in case this encourages people to speed and run from light to light if they do get caught more often than they expect. That's one thing we are concerned with. And using AI-based software for adaptive signal timings or counts to help us understand speeds and things of that nature. Scoping and mainstreaming. So here on out, we're kind of, you know, spreading this around the department now, starting to get the idea flowing. We're thinking about proposing this as another one of those speed management techniques in the design manual. And we also want to begin incorporating it into our scoping activities in the beginning of projects where this might be applicable to encourage this in our current project development process. And then lastly, we were actually challenged by Secretary Perdue when he saw this presentation in the early stages to develop a systematic identification tool of where this might be applicable and to help adopt it statewide. So next slide. So I want to end with this. And we started off with crashes and we'll end with one. It's kind of a powerful message. This crash was on March 2nd of this year. We started this signal timing technique, I guess you could call it, back in October of 2021. And these timings were well established by then. This was during peak season. This bicyclist was crossing the road at Gaines Avenue and US 41 on that Manatee corridor, and they were hit. They were in the crosswalk, and they were responded to by EMS, taken to the hospital, and they survived. If you're not familiar, this is the very extreme end of the corridor, the end where there's higher speeds. And we would like to believe that it's possible that this person may have lived, their life may have been saved because of these timing changes we made. We don't know that for sure, but it's highly possible. And that's the kind of thing that we're trying to make a difference on. We know we can't prevent every single crash, every single conflict, but we do know that inevitably when those events happen, that if we can increase the survivability, then perhaps we can start to make a difference. Next slide. So with that, I'll take questions. I'm certainly not a signal timing expert. If you have anything specific that you want to ask, I can certainly connect you with our investigators, Neil and Sam, and get those detailed questions answered. But any questions about the project?
Any questions for Mr. Davis? Shad, go ahead, please turn your mic.
My question is on the, did you look at the increase, like the pollution increase for the lower speeds and the congestion? Had you looked at that as part of, or is that part of your cost analysis that you're still going to do?
Yeah, so that'll be a part of the inclusion in our BC analysis.
Yeah, I'm curious what that'll bring about. So,
yeah.
So when you get that data, I guess get back with Eric, and he can then pass it along to some of us if we're the ones that are interested. So, thank you. It was a good presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stephen. Very good. You had mentioned that you would suggest that this worked only where signal separations were between 1/4 and 1/2 mile. So I was just curious, in areas that are maybe more downtown where you have spacing that's less than that, is there a reason that wouldn't work with really close signal spacing?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to congestion management. If it's at the peak of the peak, where you're trying to maximize volume throughput, you're gonna have, some congestion issues. And if that spacing is too close, and you're inducing that congestion, so to speak, it kind of, there's a balance there where the amount of congestion induced doesn't really serve the purpose we didn't think. I think it's that's one of our topics moving forward, trying to figure out is what a good balance is and what's tolerable. we certainly don't want to encourage red light running or encourage, drivers to speed between signals where they're just going to get caught. But from what we've seen, when the signal spacing is too close, the progression becomes so hindered by the reduced cycle lengths that it becomes the benefit to cost doesn't really doesn't pay off.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Observed any reduction in traffic volumes or diversion to other routes as a result of this?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't really looked into that yet. Both of these roads that we've looked at were, 6-lane divided highways, high volume, high ADT. One thing we want to look at too, as well, is more peak season considerations as we come into more of a normalization. If you're probably aware, Bradenton is a pretty seasonal area. And so there's going to be some pretty decent timing adjustments that are needed as the peak seasons come and go. And in order to achieve, the speed reduction goal. But I think what we'll be able to do is over time, we'll be able to look at, as we get it, more of a baseline established now that we know, hey, we've figured out what our normal ADT is and maybe a diversion over the course of a couple peak seasons with cloud source data and with help from local agencies. We can probably get a little more data on the major side streets to see if there's any diversion going on. I would say, the downtown Lakeland example of US 92, it's got a pretty good network. So if there is diversion going on, it's probably not too extreme on the alternate routes. There should be some good dispersion through that network. In the Bradenton example, you do have US 301 just to the east, which is higher speed corridor. And so, yeah, there could be some people that break off at Televast and up at Cortez on the north side and go over to 301 to disperse. But our focus again really was this specific corridor and reducing the PED crashes in that location, because that area has a lot of pedestrian bike activity. There's a lot of transient activity there, bus stops, a lot of attractors there. And so really that was our goal. I think we'll have to look into that more. That's a good suggestion, but I think in general, both locations shouldn't have too many concerns with redistribution.
All right, thank you. I'll take one more question. Anyone? Discussion?
No question.
All right, Nabil, go ahead.
So Davis, thank you for the presentation. Very involved actually with the timing. The question is, how long is this corridor?
It's several miles, I believe. I think it's about the Bradenton corridor is, I think, 3 miles, if I'm not mistaken. And then the US 92 location is a little over a mile.
Okay, and have you kind of prioritized which areas of the corridor are more prone to fatal accidents as opposed to other areas?
Yeah, so the more northern area of the Bradenton corridor has the higher PED activity. And that area we had to focus on more with dialing in the timings. the 92 corridor is kind of an issue throughout. Actually, a few years ago, the department went through and added PHB crossings to that segment, about 4 of them. And they're only intermittently used. And so we want to provide another measure for ped safety there. And so we tried to do that through this speed management through signal timing initiative.
Understood. And along those lines, have you compared just the overall speed reduction within that highly prone to accident segment compared to overall reduction or overall tweaking of the signal timing?
As far as, can you
In
kind
other
of
words,
give?
which one would yield, less work and effort and, of course, deaths or fatalities?
I think that's still ongoing. We're still kind of dialing things in, with additional measures, especially the nighttime measures. So we're kind of still tweaking things. I think October will be 1 year since we started it. So it'll be good to see, from that perspective, coming full circle, what we've been able to do, and if we're able to add any of those other measures. But I think we're getting to the point now where going to be able to finalize some of this more and see the overall effectiveness, and balance it out. So
In other words, why not just take a segment that is extremely critical as far as pedestrian and bike crashes and reduce speed that altogether throughout that segment from 40 miles to 30 miles an hour?
yeah, I think that's what we're trying to do. And I think a part of it too, in that more northern section, is considering reducing posted speed limits or even variable speed limit signs as well. And that could be based on time of day, but I think it's more, it's just going to be focused on, how much we can reduce it. We still have rules and policies and statutes we have to adhere to as far as posting speed limits and things of that nature, which we want to do. But I think we're getting to that point now where we're figuring out how low we can push it without inducing so much congestion that it doesn't make sense.
It's a balance. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Davis, for that presentation, and we appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, we have one more presentation, and it's an update on the Regional Tismo program by Mr. Eric Hill.
Good morning again, and just to be mindful of time, because we do need to transition this room, but in the Orlando area, we have a very rich Tismo community. We have the Tismo committee here at Metro Plan Orlando. Then we have the Tismo consortium that is made up of District 5. Beyond that, we have Central Florida. And for over a year, Metro Plan Orlando's been leading this effort, working with other MPOs. And initially it was the I-4 corridor, but it's become the I-4 corridor travel shed to advance Tismo through planning, not deployment and implementation. And we have started this program, and it involves the MPOs that are listed here, including each of the districts, District 5, 3, and 7, as well as the Turnpike, THEA, which is Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority, and CFX, to advance Tismo through knowledge sharing, through talking about programs, through having regular meetings. Some of the accomplishments, real quickly, we've established memorandum understandings between all the MPOs to allocate staff to work towards this effort. We've created a working group that meets regularly. We've put together some applications for awards that we've won. We were awarded a State Transportation Innovative Council grant for $100,000 for this effort. The National Institute of Congestion Reduction at University of South Florida. We teamed with Center for Urban Transportation Research to receive an award from that grant as well. And then more recently, we received or partnered with Cutter again on a DOE grant, and that is to look at evaluating automated vehicles using current technology, older technology, and seeing if that can still be used as opposed to making the investments in the future. The working group, we've established goals and objectives for the working group. Again, we meet regularly. And we did a survey of all these MPOs on what they would like to see through this program. Knowledge transfer, which is what we've been trying to achieve through our meetings, and the format of our meetings is that we have someone nationally give a presentation on Tismo, someone that is rich in Tismo, and then we ask one of our local agencies to talk about their Tismo program. So that we have been meeting.
Can you
that
mute it?
knowledge.
Is she dancing?
Okay, that's not me, Mr. Danson. So the knowledge transfer, we've been able to achieve
Oh,
that.
shoot.
We've also talked, some of you have heard me say I'm infatuated with technology but not in love with it. This is why. The funding, we recognize that funding is always an important factor. Tismo projects have to compete with the capital projects in this kind of like an unfair fight. So we've had some discussions on that. And then just advancing and prioritizing Tismo at these other MPOs. Now, MetroPlan is unique in the MPO world in that we have this rich Tismo community, and every MPO doesn't have it. A lot of it has to do with just staff capacity, knowledge awareness, and through this program, this is what we want to try and build with the other MPOs in Central Florida. Again, the format of the meetings are that we have someone nationally give a presentation, and this gives you just a flavor of some of the discussions that we've had. We've had some discussion on how MPOs can further broadband, and this is more reflective of what we went through with the pandemic and how broadband became more important. We've had presentations from the National Operations Centers of Excellence, which is an advocacy group in DC that advances Tismo. The North Central Texas Council of Governments, they have a very active automated vehicle program, and we've had someone come in who is actually, that is his title. He is the AV Program Director for an MPO. Smart North Florida, we have had a presentation by them to this committee as well. And then you just heard some of the activities from Fdot. The Regional Integrated Transportation Information System, RITIS, is a platform that is operated from the University of Maryland, and it is a platform where you can do some analysis on travel time, reliability. It's a wealth of information on just data. And then PedSafe, that's one project that's here in District 5, started here in District 5, but we see that it can be, it's scalable across Central Florida, but scalable at these other MPOs as well. So I wanted to just update you on that because it's been over a year since I've spoken with you about this program. But something that we have as one of our milestones in the activities we have is a peer exchange. And what we've done is the contract that we have with Cutter, they've done a feasibility study on developing a framework for an actual program, real program that's sustainable. And through their work, what we identified is other MPOs or regions similar to this program across the country. And we've done interviews with each of them, and just to understand how they operate, the work they do, how they are sustained, how they're staffed, how they're governed. And so we have asked them to join us in a peer exchange. And peer exchange is going to be virtual. It's going to be September the 13th from 1:30 to 4. So, it's on our website. If anyone wants to participate, you can. But the feasibility study is going to be the key point, and it's going to be directed at the MPO directors. The peer programs that we're going to have, was going to be 5 of them. They're listed on the next slide. I'll get to that. But we're going to have them come in and just give an overview of their program to the directors. And then we have from the feasibility study a potential framework that Cutter's going to be, they're going to be presenting. And the framework looks at, again, a strategic plan, governance, funding, one that I find very interesting, equity. How do we bridge that equity component with Tismo. Because the emerging technology that's impacting some communities that are just not aware of it is important, and that outreach is something that we need to do. And then at the end, we're going to look for guidance from the directors on how we take the next step with this program. And, you know, spoiler alert, we're going to be asking the directors to do a strategic plan. I mentioned the programs, the peer programs. The Eastern Transportation Coalition is the former I-95 coalition that includes all the states in the I-95 corridor, but it's been expanded to include, I think, Kentucky and Tennessee and a couple other states west of 95. The I-10 coalition operates between Texas and New Mexico, I believe, or Arizona. And interesting thing about them is when we did the interview, we found that they were disorganized. And so we see an opportunity for them to learn from us and for us to learn from them. NITAC is exotic. That's the way I've been describing it because it's by country. It involves a coalition between the United States and Canada in the Buffalo area. The Atlanta Regional Commission, I don't know how that little hyphen got on there, on that E, but spell check didn't pick it up for some reason. They're in the Atlanta area, similar footprint is similar to Central Florida. Again, next, the North Central Texas Council of Governments is another one we interviewed along with Dr. Cog. And Oregon Metro, again, going back to that Tismo and equity, they've done a great job in trying to do that, meet that demand or that challenge of getting knowledge awareness out to communities that are typically, historically have been underserved. And then Smart North Florida, again, you've heard from them. So, Mr. Chairman, that's a quick overview. Again, any questions, more than happy to respond to, but if you're available on the 13th between 1:30 and 4, please join us on the peer exchange.
Thank you, Eric. We probably have time for about one or two, maybe one question. Anyone have a question for Mr. Eric Hill? All right, thank you so much for that. All right, moving along, we have, next item on your agenda is common presentation and status reports. And those will be, we have 3 of them presented at the TAC meeting. So I encourage you to stick around and stand by for those. Next section, we have the general items, general information. And you'll find more detailed information in tab 5. More importantly, our upcoming meetings next will be the.
Thank you, sir.
Excuse me?
That's Davis. That's Stephen Davis. He's still on.
Oh, Mr. Davis, if you're still logged in, can you mute your microphone, please? All right, so our next upcoming meetings of interest, we have the Metro Plan Atlanta Board meeting, which will be held here on September 14th at 9 a.m. And the next time we meet for the Tismo meeting will be on October 28th at 8:30 a.m. So this time I will open up the floor for any member comments. Anyone wishing to make any comments or suggestions? All right, so now we'll move on to public comments. If any members of the public that wish to comment, please use the raise hands function and you'll be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll unmute your mic. After you are recognized, please state your name and address for the record and limit your comment to 2 minutes or less. Do we have anyone joining us virtually who'd like to make a public comment?
We have Ms. Joanne Canellis on the virtual. Would like to make a comment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Ms. Canellis, you are recognized. Please proceed.
Hi.
State your name and your
Hi,
address.
can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I even hear myself over there. Yes. Anyways, I want to know. I'm Joanne Canellis. My address is 324 Claremont Avenue, Lakeland, Florida, 32746. I would like to have 24 hours bus and train service, including holidays, weekends, and nighttime. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Ms. Canales, please continue.
Yeah, I'd like to have bus and train service, 24 hours bus and train service every 15 minutes everywhere. And that way we don't have to be stranded or waiting out in this heat or rain or cold. And we need the bus stop here at the Country Club Road, and the corner of Country Club Road and Estella Road, and we need the bus stop back over at the um Oviedo Boulevard by Big Kahuna Pool. You know where that is? It's the Oviedo Aquatic Center, and we need the bus stop over at the bus stop over by the Lake Mary Prep School. You know where that is, and stuff like that. And we need the bus back over right here in Lake Mary, right here, to put it right here over at the Lake Mary Boulevard, and in Country Club, you need it right nearby in case you don't get it over here, stuff like that, both sides. And we need we need the bus also closer to Douglas Avenue in Alamo Springs, Florida, too, both sides.
Okay, Ms. Canales, I do apologize. We are short on time. I appreciate you providing us those comments. Unfortunately, we do have to move on, so thank you for your comments this morning. Lisa, do you have anyone in the public wishing to make any comments?
I have not received any.
Okay, no written comments as well? No? Okay, all right. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.